Good Sunday morning, everybody. Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears. You are watching the morning after every week. I will come on and give my thoughts on that week's game and West Virginia winners in a very ugly game once again, 20-13 over Texas Tech. But hey, they're 3-1. They're 1-0 in conference play. There's not much that you can be upset about other than the fashion in which they win, right? So through 4 games, your only loss is to Penn State. And I think many would agree that that's probably one of the top 4, maybe top 5 teams in the country and are going to be in the mix for the college football playoff from start to finish. So you can't really be too upset about that loss. You got to be happy with how you handled Duquesne. You got to be happy with the way that you found a way to win against Pitt after your starting quarterback, Garrett Green, goes down in the second drive of the game. And again, your redshirt freshman quarterback, Nico Marchio, in his first ever collegiate start, leads you to a victory. Again, it's not pretty, but at the end, no one really cares as long as you're winning football games. And right now, that's what Neal Brown needs, is to win as many football games as humanly possible. So starting off with this game, I think obviously the defense was phenomenal. They've been great really all season. But just the way that they played in this game really kind of makes you feel like there's something there. And the reason I say that is because even before Tyler Shuck got hurt, you could see how well this unit gelled, how well they tackle, how well they communicate. Obviously, they gave up a few plays, especially in the fourth quarter, but even with Texas Tech's starting quarterback in the game, they weren't doing anything. It's not like they lost this game because, Baron Morton had played the entire game. He played most of the game. Now, had Tyler Shuck played the entire game, we could be talking about a different result. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be extremely happy with the defense. Offensively, it has to be a little unsettling to go into the half up 10-3 with how well your defense played. The 2 turnovers, obviously the first one on Nico, that was just terrible decision. There's no way to sugarcoat that one, and even Nico admitted in the post-game press conference that it was just a bad decision. He didn't see the guy there and just made a bad throw. The second interception, that's on Devin Carter. That ball's got to be caught. And but I think when you go back and you rewatch that first half, you'll see so many opportunities offensively where they could have capitalized on all those 3 and outs that Texas Tech had. They just didn't do anything with it. And it felt like, even though it was a 10-3 game, it felt like it was a 3 or 4 score game. And it rightfully should have been. But the offense couldn't do anything. And that's even with the running game. I didn't think that West Virginia really ran the ball all that well in this one. C.J. Donaldson really struggled to get going. Nico, obviously, he ran the ball well enough. But I just didn't feel like, to me, that was the West Virginia run game that we've grown accustomed to seeing. Now, they still ran for 157 yards, 3.7 yards a carry, but it just didn't feel like it. And I feel like that played a part in the lack of the success on offense. But to me, it all stems to the passing game. And somebody's got to step up at wide receiver. I mean, I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to happen. That's not my job to figure out. That's obviously for Neal and the offensive staff to figure out. But somebody has to step up. And the one thing that I noted, I think I talked about it in the Mountaineers Down postgame show yesterday. If not, I told Eugene off the air. But how do you bring in Jay Sean Polk, E.J. Horton, Noah Massey through the transfer portal? You have Jarrell Williams, who was supposedly one of the bigger surprises of the offseason in his second year in the system. And you have all these other scholarship receivers, yet they're not on the field. They're not making plays. Jeremiah Aaron, where has he been? We always hear about that year 1 to year 2 jump for JUCO guys, and I get you're not going to hit on 100% of JUCO guys, and that could be the case with Jeremiah Aaron. I don't know. It's too early in the season to tell. But he's not on the field. He's not making plays. And every time I look up, and again, it's not a knock on these two guys at all. They have been the most consistent. But Grayson Malashevich and Hudson Clement, two former walk-ons, are the guys that are on the field the most outside of Devin Carter and Cortez Braham. That's a problem. The reason it's a problem is because this is year 5. And 3 of the first 4 years of this coaching staff, there has been losing seasons. So it would be a different, I think, feeling around that whole situation is if those walk-ons were making impactful or former walk-ons were groomed and developed and they were helping win games. But these two guys are on the field because none of the other guys, at least to this point, have made enough plays consistently in practice or in the game to earn more opportunities in the game. And that's a red flag to me when you're in year 5 and your top 4 wide receivers are former walk-ons. That's a problem. So I don't understand what's going on with some of these guys. I don't know. They're very, they're very quiet and tight to the vest in terms of injuries and stuff. So who knows? There may be something we don't really know about. EJ Horton, we saw the deep ball attempt there late in the 4th quarter. Again, I could go into a whole spiel about that. I don't understand what that was about. Felt like it made more sense to run the football there and kind of milk that clock instead of just all of a sudden start to. Anyways, I'm going to get off track there, but you see where I'm going with that. But why is EJ Horton on the field in just that situation and in a few others? Why is he not on the field more? Why is Noah Massey, this big 6'4", 230, 235 pound wide receiver, tight end, hybrid body, not on the field? Why is Jay-Sean Polk, this speedster, not on the field? Why is Jarrell Williams, this kid that everyone was talking about in the preseason that, hey, he kind of surprised us. He made a step that we weren't expecting. Why is he not making an impact? Why is Rodney Gallagher only getting used in these gadget plays? Why? I don't understand. Traylon Ray, he's so smooth, but they don't throw the ball to him. They don't let him have a chance in the passing game. So, and I know I sound like I'm being very critical right now, but it's the truth. It's a 20-13 game, but this game should have been well out of hand by the time halftime rolled around, and it wasn't. They almost handed this game away. And to me, that's a big, again, red flag, because when you go into the deeper parts of this Big 12 schedule, you're going to be facing some really, really tough teams, and you're going to be playing in some tough environments. Texas Tech's a good football team. They are not what their record indicates. And I've said that before. So this is a good win. The problem is you can't win like this every single week. You can maybe get by with it against Pitt. You can maybe get by with it against Texas Tech when they have their starting quarterback go down and you're playing at home and it's crap weather. But if you have perfect conditions next week down there in Fort Worth and you're playing TCU, you're going to have to score the ball. You're going to have to put the ball in the end zone. You're going to have to move the ball and stay ahead of the chains. You're going to have to convert third downs. You're going to not be able to just bank on getting to 17 or 20 points and thinking that's going to win you football games. That's not going to be how this works. That can create, and these last 2 weeks, I think, have created an identity for this team, though. You play solid defense, you run the ball, you be physical, you play tough, you play smart for the most part, and you put yourself in position to win. But that doesn't mean not open up the playbook offensively. I don't know why, again, there's so much conservativeness with the play calling. And I get it's a redshirt freshman. I get it's his first college start. You want to be safe with him. And I even said it in the walkthrough game day show. So I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here, but you have to be able to open up the passing game enough, but yet still keep it simple. 2 reads and go. If nothing's there, take off. Not go empty set. All of a sudden, it's a pump fake and a draw, or just a straight up draw. That's so predictable. You've got to have some different elements to this stuff. You can't tell me that you can't attach a bubble screen onto that, or you can't attach a tunnel screen, or someone going in motion, you got a little touch pass, or just something different. Present a different picture to the defense, because I'm telling you, the deeper you get into this conference schedule, that stuff isn't going to work, and it's not going to win you games every single week. It may get you by for the time being, but the long haul, that's a different question. That's a different story. The quarterback play from Nico goes 12 of 21 for 78 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, which we've already discussed, 3.7 yards per completion. 3.7 yards per completion. Yeah, that's not good. That's not on Nico, in my opinion. Again, this falls back on the receivers. They're not making plays after the catch. We are 4 games into this season, and it would be very hard for me to find 1 or 2 plays where a receiver caught the ball and got 10 to 15 yards after the catch. I mean, outside of the Duquesne game, obviously, because it's Duquesne. But in the 3 Power 5 games that West Virginia's played, it's hard for me to think. They've got to be able to make plays. And when Neal Brown talks about this in the postgame press conference, and they've got to be better around him, they've got to help Nico more, they've got to help Garrett more, whoever's in a quarterback. It's not just catching the football, which is step 1. They did have a few drops in this game too. Number 2, well, I guess number 1 would be getting separation. They're not getting separation. They're not getting open early enough in their routes. It's taking way too long for these guys to get open. It's not every play. Some of these are on Nico for holding on to the ball a little bit too long. He's being unsure of himself, as a normal redshirt freshman would. But there are times where guys just flat out aren't getting open. And if you're not getting open, how can you expect to push the ball downfield? You can't. So separation has to get better. That's all technique. That's all fundamentals. That's all footwork. That's all scouting. That's all just understanding what your opponent's trying to do. It's understanding leverage. There's a lot to it. But separation's 1. Catching the ball's got to be an emphasis for this group. I mean, it has been an ongoing issue for 5 seasons. It's got to get fixed. And third of all, make something happen after the catch. I mean, when you're not pushing the ball down the field vertically, you're not taking shots down the field. If you're not going to be able to do that, you have to make up for that somewhere. And it's got to be with the underneath stuff. If it's a screen, if it's a slant, if it's I don't care what it is. If it's just a little toss out into the flat, you've got to make some plays after the catch to give yourself a chance to get some third and manageable situations. You can't be playing behind the chains with a redshirt freshman quarterback, or even with Garrett Green starting, and he's a first-year starting quarterback. You can't have it. You've got to have plays happen after the catch. I'm not going to single him out again because I already did it in the post-game show, but if you watch the post-game show, you know who I'm talking about. There's 1 play a receiver made, caught the ball, had 1 man to miss in the open field toward West Virginia's sideline. If he makes that guy miss, he's got a first down and then some. Doesn't even get the first down. Puts a very basic move on the guy and didn't fall for it and just got wrapped up right there on the spot. And he had the angles, he had everything to his advantage. He still could not make the play. He's not the only one, but he did come back and make a play later in the game. But that has been a theme here with this receiver group. Somebody's got to step up and make the plays. And again, this is why I'm questioning why some of these other guys aren't on the field when the guys we have been seeing aren't making plays after the catch. Now, maybe those guys aren't doing it in practice either, and that's even more concerning. But you have to be able to do more after the catch if you're going to want to score the ball and move the ball against some of these Big 12 defenses. You're not going to win 20-14, 20-13, 17-14, 17-10 each week. It's not sustainable. The last thing that I want to talk about, and again, we mentioned it on the post-game show, is Neal Brown. What does this win do for him, if anything? In my opinion, I think it certainly cools the temperature a smidge, just a smidge, not a whole lot. The reason I don't think it does a whole lot just yet is because if you remember back when he was hired and back in the summer of Big 12 Media Days, and even before the season started, Ren Baker said, I'm not putting the win total on what Neal has to do to be able to keep his job. I'm just not doing that, because you can feel great about a 5 or 6 win season. You can say, hey, look, everything was kind of trending in the right direction. They got things going. Looks like there's some momentum building here. But you could also feel really bad about an 8 or 9 win season. Right now, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but they're 3-1, and you could make the argument they're one of the probably not one of the better 3-1 teams in the country. There's a lot of issues at stake here, and obviously the quarterback injury, or the injury to Garrett Green, Nico having to go in and play, that's obviously its own issue, but you've got to figure it out. Everyone else does. So I don't think it cools the hot seat a lot. There's a lot of football games left. There's 8 more games to go. If they get to a bowl game, there's a 9th. But this thing could easily flip. And again, I'm not trying to be the pessimistic guy. I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here. I'm just trying to be realistic. And again, who knows what the outcome of that game this weekend, what that is if Tyler Shuck doesn't get hurt. Again, they really weren't moving the football with him on the field. But I kind of have a gut feeling that if he was in the game for the entirety, I think he probably would have figured it out a little quicker than Baron Morton. That's just a hunch. Now, again, I don't know if that means they win, lose, draw, whatever, but it's just something to think about. So you have TCU next week on the road, prime time, 8 o'clock. Again, you play like this, you play like you did against Pitt offensively, good luck. That's all I got to say. You know, Neal Brown you might prove me wrong. It might be the first coach ever to average like 16 points, 17 points a game and get bowl eligible. But I don't know. You got TCU. You have Houston on Thursday night. You're going to get their best shot, especially with it being Dana. You got a couple of former Mountaineers, other former Mountaineers down there. Come back for Oklahoma State. Got Oklahoma down the schedule. We got Baylor and Cincinnati down the schedule. BYU, Central Florida, Kansas State. Or not Kansas State, but you get the point. There's a lot of really good football teams left on the schedule. And 3-1, certainly there's a good feeling around the program right now being 3-1, but there's a lot of work left to be done before you can really feel good, I think, about the trajectory of this program, and you can feel good if you're Neal Brown. There's a lot of season left. Anything can happen. So we'll see. I think but to this point, they've got to be happy. They're 3-1, 1-0 conference play, and they've done it playing ugly football offensively. So if they start to figure something out, if they just figure something out offensively, they may have something here, especially with that defense. I'm Schuyler Callihan. You've been watching Between the Ears the morning after. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Give us a like as well. Follow us on Twitter or X, whatever we want to call it today. Mountaineers Now. You can follow me at Callahan_. And we will be back here in a couple of days reviewing the good, the bad, the ugly, which I'll bring Chris on for that, I believe, so I can get his take. You guys can get his opinion on it. So you're not just hearing me regurgitate the same things over and over and over again, but you can get his take on this and where the team is through 4 games. And then we'll get to how West Virginia beats TCU, the walkthrough game day show breaking down West Virginia and TCU, which will air next Thursday, and then our best bets segment on Friday, along with In the Gun with Phil Steele on Friday as well. So a lot of content coming up for you. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you here in a couple of days. Have a good weekend.